What's up, everybody? True Boxing here. Thank you for coming back to get hit with the truth. So today we're gonna discuss the what's next on Vergil Ortiz Jr., the undefeated star on the rise in the welterweight division. He's coming off of his best win so far, his 8th round knockout of Maurice Hooker, the former 140-pound champion. They collided on Saturday, March 20th in the main event of a DAZN card. And yeah, Vergil Ortiz, broke him down. He took shots, though. It was a competitive fight. Hooker was in this fight. It was very competitive. He landed some really good shots, but, the kid Ortiz just kept stalking, and he laid out Maurice Hooker with a body shot, and really, looked good. He looked sharp. So the big question now, what's next for Vergil Ortiz? So let's look at the top 10, and you guys are going to see right now why I say he doesn't really have a lot of options, so he might need to take a risk. But let's run through the top 10 just to be sure. So we start with the number 1 fighter, which is the undefeated unified champion, Errol Spence Jr. Errol Spence has so many options. He is not going to take a risk against a kid like Errol Spence, especially if he were to beat Errol Spence. Nobody would really beat Vergil Ortiz. Nobody would really give him credit for it. He wouldn't get that high-end credit because it would be like, so what? This kid is young, he's green, there's no sense in it. So Errol Spence is not going to give Vergil Ortiz the time of day. Plus, it's PBC working with Golden Boy. Number 2 is Terrence Crawford. Now, as I announced this video, Crawford and Pacquiao are talking to each other to possibly fight later this year on June 5th. If that happens, then there's no chance that Ortiz gets Crawford, but that's the fight he supposedly wants, and a lot of people are saying he's not ready for Crawford. And you know what? In all reality, he's not ready for Crawford. But here's what people need to understand. Ready or not, this might be the best option for him because there is only PBC guys ranked in the top 10 right now. There is not one fighter outside of Terrence Crawford that is not signed with the PBC that's in the current top 10. So Vergil Ortiz, just by, he might have to take the risk and fight Terrence Crawford if Crawford does not get the Pacquiao fight. So people need to be realistic and stop going off of how things should be and go off of how things really are. The PBC and Golden Boy are almost for sure not going to work together to get a fight going with Ortiz against a top 10 guy unless the PBC can control the fight and get it on Fox or Showtime. And Golden Boy with Ortiz, he is too big of a name unless he's fighting a guy like Crawford or Errol Spence to where it makes sense to go on their network. But I'm sorry, guys, this is just the reality of boxing, and people need to accept it, that Ortiz might have to take the risk and fight Terrence Crawford next. So we'll see. But, and we'll get back to that. Number 3 is the Pac-Man, Manny Pacquiao. Pacquiao's not going to fight a youngster. Pacquiao's trying to do a curtain call. He's trying to get his last 1 or 2 fights in and make a shitload of money before he goes, which is why he's even considering a Terrence Crawford fight. It's because it's a huge money fight. That's why he's considering it. And I get it. That makes sense to me. He wants to close his career out, wants to make a big paycheck, and he wants to also fight some of the best fighters. And like I said, I don't blame him. So I think it's a good move. And I hope him and Crawford can get together. But yeah, whether they do or not, he's not going to give Ortiz a chance with Ortiz's talent and everything. I just don't see it. Number 4 is Sean Porter. Now, Sean Porter is one of those guys that would cross the street, as they call it, to fight a kid like Vergil Ortiz. But I don't think the PBC and Golden Boy are going to get together for the fight. So I'm going to say no chance on this one. Number 5 is Keith Thurman. Keith Thurman, I don't think, wants that smoke. I think he wants to just go straight into a big name fight against a bigger name, and he's got options in the PBC, but he doesn't even seem to want to take a tune-up. So I don't see Thurman and Ortiz. Number 6, Yordenis Ugas. Ugas looks to be lined up to fight Errol Spence next in a unification bout, so I don't see these two guys locking horns. And again, it's BBC and Golden Boy, so I don't think so. 1 second. Number 7 is Danny Garcia, the former 2-division champ. Garcia is another PBC guy. He's not going to take the risk of fighting a guy from Golden Boy, especially coming off of that loss to Errol Spence Jr. And Garcia has already expressed interest in moving up to 154 in his next fight. So I don't see this one. Number 8 is Mikey Garcia. Now, if Mikey decides to return to DAZN for his next fight, maybe he considers a kid like Vergil Ortiz, but to be honest, I don't think so. I don't think Mikey wants to take that risk. I think Mikey wants the big name fights or more beatable opponents for a fight at 147, and I think he knows against a kid like Ortiz, he's going to be in a dogfight. So I think Mikey, even if he doesn't get Pacquiao, he's going to go after a bigger name or a more beatable fighter. So I don't see him taking a risk against Ortiz. Number 8 is, or Mikey was number 8. Number 9 is Sergey Lipinets. Lipinets is taking on Jaron Ennis next, and I don't think he's going to make it out of that fight. So I don't see Lipinets being interested in Ortiz. And then the 3-way tie for 10th, Ortiz is tied for 10th, but the other two are Josecito Lopez. Now, that's one fight that would be possible if Lopez didn't have ties with the PBC. I could see him very interested in fighting Vergil Ortiz, but I don't think they're going to make it happen. Lopez would be too big of a test for some of the other guys at 147 that are with the PBC. But if Al Heyman was going to allow one guy to do it, I think he would allow Lopez, but I don't think he will. And then finally, you got Jamal James. Jamal James, I believe he has a mandatory defense next of his regular title, so I don't see the PBC and Golden Boy coming together. So I hope everybody looked at this top 10 and watched it all the way through and understands that Ortiz is going to have a hell of a time trying to find opposition. So people should not just expect so much. They shouldn't expect Ortiz to just, he should fight somebody else, or he should continue to fight, he should just continue to step himself up. Well, after Maurice Hooker, there's not a lot of guys he's going to be able to step himself up against that make sense and that are very good, because the PBC has 147 on lockdown. So I hope Ortiz gets a big name opponent next. I hope somebody will cross the street, but in reality, if it's not Crawford, he's going to go back to fighting nobodies or guys that are complete stepping stones. So don't be surprised by that. We'll see what happens. But that's it. That's the What's Next on Vergil Ortiz Jr., the undefeated welterweight star on the rise. All right, True Boxing. You've been here with the truth.